शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. लोकवीर्यं महापूज्यं सर्वरक्षाकरं विभुं पार्वती हृदयानन्दं शास्तारं प्रणमाम्यहं। स्वामिये शरणमय्यप्पा। वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्तप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्रीपार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं चक्रवाटी द्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरधाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्णात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കുന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day to all of you. So we'll start with a quick review of 84. Srividya, can you do 84?
Okay, ji. Dasakam 84, Samanta Panjaga Yatra Varnana. Vajitadada Panobaraga Kale Urinidat Kritavarma Kamasuno Yedikula Mahila Sudiptam Samupagadosi Samanda Panjakakyam Bahudara Janata Hidaya Tatra त्वमपि पुनन्विनिमज्जति तदोऽयम् द्विजगणपरिमुक्तवित्तराशिः सममिलाता गुरुपाण्डवादिमित्रैः तव खलु दयिता जनैः समेता त्रिपदसुताद्वैघाटभक्तिभारा तदुदित भवता हृदि प्रकारैः अधिमुमुते सममन्यभाविनीभिः तदनु च भगवन् निरीक्ष्य गोपान् अधिकुतुघातु भगम्य मानयित्वा चिरधर विरहातुराङ्गदेकाः पशुभवतास् सरसं त्वमन्वयासीः
Last line, Pashupavadhus.
पशुभवधू सरसं त्वमन्वयासीः सपति च भवति क्षणोत्सवेन प्रमुक्षितमानहृदां निदम्बिनीनाम् अधिरसपरिमुक्तकञ्जुलीके परिचय हृदयदरे कुचेन्यलैषीः.
And the last word, Hridya. And the Parichaya Hridya.
Okay. अधिरसपरिमुक्तकञ्जुलीके परिचय हृदयदरे कुचेन्यलैषीः रिभुजनकलहै पुनर्मे समुपगदैर्यति विलम्बनाभूत् इति कृतपरिरम्भने त्वयि धाक् अधिविवसा खलु राधिका निलीये अभगत विरहव्यदास्तदाताः रहसि विधाय तथा तत्त्वबोधम् परमशुभसिद्धात्मगोः आत्मेत युदयदु वस्फुटमेव चेदचेसीति सुगरस परिमिश्रितो वियोगः किमपि पुरा भवत् उत्तवो बधेशैः समभवतमुदः परन्दुदासां परमसुगैक्यमयी भवद्विचिन्ता मुनिवरनिवहैस्तवादपित्रा दुरिदसमाय शुभानि पृच्यमानैः द्वयि सदि किमिदं शुभान्धरैरिक्त युरुहसि धैरपीयादितस्तथासौ सुमहदीयजने विधायमाने प्रमुदितमित्रजने सहैव गोपाः यदुजनमहितास्त्रिमासमात्रं भवतनुषङ्गरसं पुरेव भेजुः व्यपरमसमये समेत्य राधां दृढमुपगूह्य निरीक्ष्य विदकेतां प्रमुदितः हृदयपुरं प्रयातः पवनपुरेश्वर पाहि मां गधेभ्यः. श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we'll continue with 86. I think we had finished up to 6 stanzas, so we'll start from the 7th. First we'll have Shanti, you can be a student. Ram, are you on, Nikki?
Not yet. Is Ramya here, Rajesh?
Okay, Ram, he can join second half. Okay, so Shanti and Minu, you can do first half. And then Padma Garu, you and Ram can do second half. So stanza 7 of Dasakam 86. भक्तोत्तम सेत भीष्मे तव धरणि भर क्षेप कृत्यैकसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं विबिन्दत्ययुध समधिकं प्राप्त साधे च पार्थे निःशस्त्रत्व प्रतिज्ञां विजगदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली बाधावन् प्राञ्जलिं तं नतशिरसमतो वीक्ष्य मोदादपाघाः. So last time when we were kind of seeing through this Dashakam, right, we were kind of seeing all the important incidents which was happening in the Mahabharata war itself, right? It first started off with the battle with Salva and getting rid of Salva. then getting rid of Dantavaktra, who was the counterpart of Shishupala Dantavaktra, so that Jaya Vijaya, that came to an end. And then it talked about how Krishna went, and then the incident, how he has saved the Pandavas multiple times, Draupadi specifically multiple times. One during the assembly at the Kauravas, and second was during when they were in the forest, right, when Durvasa came with all of his emissaries. Then he talked about how Krishna went to Kauravas to avoid the war, and then he then showed his Vishwarupam there. And then it kind of came into the war itself, right? And how Duryodhana, Arjuna approached, that we saw. And then the last one, it talked about how the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, what happened during the war, right? At the time, how you, Krishna, you then told Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. That's how we kind of ended the previous thing. So here, it's talking in this particular thing, right? It is talking about another couple of big stories, right? Which is actually coming. So, and again, you all know Mahabharata well, so I won't get into too much details. But when Bhishma was the commander of the Kauravas, at the time, Karna said, I'm not going to be the commander as long as Bhishma is the commander. And Bhishma was commander for like about 8-9 days. And he was getting rid of a lot of the Pandava army, but Bhishma was not getting rid of the Pandavas. And Duryodhana felt that there is some catch that Bhishma, some reason why Bhishma is not getting rid of the Pandavas. So he then decides to confront Bhishma. But Duryodhana goes and says, I feel like you're fighting a half-hearted battle because you're not getting rid of the Pandavas. So Bhishma then gets very upset and he takes a vow. Bhishma says that by tomorrow, I will get rid of the Pandavas. And very specifically, he says, I promise that I will get rid of Arjuna. So that is a vow that Bhishma takes. And these people take their vows, promises very seriously, right? So this news spreads everywhere that Bhishma is going to be getting rid of Arjuna tomorrow. That's a vow he's taken. So naturally, what Arjuna does is, they are all worried. And Draupadi then approaches Krishna and says, you have to help me out here. So what Krishna then tells, Krishna then takes Draupadi at night. He takes her to the Bhishma's camp. And then as she's walking, he tells, you're making too much noise. You give me your sandals that you're wearing. And then because it's making too much noise, but go in, he says, you go in and there will be a person who is inside. Draupadi doesn't know where she's going. Krishna says, you go inside. There's a person who is there. You go fall at that person's feet. And then that person will ask, what do you want? You say, you please bless me so that nothing happens to my husband. So Draupadi does that. So she goes in. There, Bhishma is fanatically like walking in his camp, and Draupadi goes, and then she falls at Bhishma's feet. Bhishma doesn't know who this is. So he blesses her, saying, may you live long, may everything, whatever you wish, come true. So what is it that you want? So immediately she looks at it as Bhishma, and then she says that, I want, of course, make sure nothing happens to my husbands, especially nothing happens to Arjuna. So at that time, Bhishma realizes what actually happened, and then he looks there. He sees Krishna carrying Draupadi's sandals on his shoulders. So then he wonders, like, what happened, right? So then Draupadi is also surprised to see that. So then Bhishma realizes that Krishna did all this so that Bhishma doesn't realize that Draupadi has come. So he sees the extent to which Krishna is going to protect his devotees. So at that time, Bhishma then tells Krishna, you made me not fulfill my vow, because now Bhishma has promised Draupadi that nothing will happen to her husbands, especially Arjuna. He says, Krishna, you promised me, you made me break my vow. So he says, I'll make sure you break your vow. Which vow was? Krishna said he will not take up arm at the Mahabharata war. So the next day, when this big battle is happening between Arjuna and Bhishma, Arjuna is not able to fight Bhishma. He's like not having the passion. Even though he's heard the Gita, he doesn't have the passion to fight Bhishma. At that time, Krishna then tells Arjuna, if you do not fight, I will fight. And Krishna gets down, grabs the wheel of the chariot, and says, I don't need any arms. With this wheel, I can get rid of entire Pandava army. I can get rid of Bhishma. However, Vyasa and everybody very clearly clarified, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He doesn't like lose his control and try to do that. He did it only so that Bhishma's vow gets fulfilled, that Krishna will take the weapon. But Krishna never intended to take the weapon out of lack of control. Right? That's that story is being told here of saying that, what all you don't do, Krishna, for your devotees. So when Bhishma saw that, and Bhishma also realizes, we're going to talk a little bit about Bhishma later. So Bhishma also realizes that Krishna did this on purpose so that Bhishma's vow is not broken. So he actually does a great stuti to Krishna at that point in the battlefield, saying, Krishna, I know why you did this. Of course, I'll be happy to die at your hands, but I know you won't do that right now, right? So that's what this is getting captured here. So, Bhakto Tamseta Bhishme, comma, Tava Dharani Bhara Kshepa Krityeka Sakte, comma, Nityam Nityam Vibindat Yayuta, one word, Vibindat Yayuta Samadikam Prapta Sade Cha Parte. That line is continuous. Bhaktotam Seta Bhishme Tava Dharani Bhara Kshepa Krityeka Sakte Nityam Nityam Vibindat Yayuta Samadikam Prapta Sade Cha Parte.
भक्तोत्तम सेद भीष्मे तव तरणि परक्षेप कृत्यैकसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं विबिन्दत्ययुत समधिकं प्राप्त साधे च पार्थे भक्तोत्तम सेद भीष्मे तव तरणि परक्षेप कृत्यैकसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं विबिन्दत्ययुत समधिकं प्राप्त साधे च पार्थे
भक्तोत्तम श्वेत भीष्मे तव धरणि परक्षेप कृत्यैगसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं विबिन्दत् ययुत समधिकं प्राप्त साधे च पार्थे भक्तोत्तम श्वेत भीष्मे तव धरणि परक्षेप कृत्यैगसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं विबिन्दत् ययुत समधिकं प्राप्त साधे च पार्थे.
In the first line, after Bhishme, there is a comma, okay? The first line.
Yeah.
Okay.
I missed the, I was
yeah.
so conscious that I would miss the tava.
Yeah, no worries. Nishastratva pratignyam vijahad arivaram dharayan krodashali, put a plus, vadhavan, and then put a comma. So the whole line together, and then vadhavan, comma. Pranjalim tam nata shira samatho vikshya modad apagaha. If you want to break it, da modad apagaha. Nishastratva pratignyam vijahadarivaram dharayan krodhashali badhavan pranjalim tam nata shira samato vikshya modad apagaha.
निस्सस्त्रत्व प्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली वादावन् प्राज्ञलिं तं नद शिरसमदो वीक्ष्य मोदादपाकाः निस्सस्त्रत्व प्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली वादावन् प्राज्ञलिं तं नद शिरसमदो वीक्ष्य मोदादपाकाः
निःशस्त्रत्व प्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली वादावन् प्राञ्जलिं तं नदशिरसमेतो वीक्ष्य मोदादभागाः.
On the last line, samato, okay.
Samato.
Natashira samato, yeah.
Samado, yeah. निःशस्त्रत्व प्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली वादावन् प्राञ्जलिं तं नतशिरसमतो वीक्ष्य मोदादभागाः.
Stanza 8. युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररण भगदत्तेरितं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्याधत्तचक्रस्तग्दितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजं नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिमवनमयन् केवलं कृत्तमौलिं तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानाम् अकार्षीत्. He talks about Krishna, what all did you not do for the Pandavas, right? And of course, there's a big list of what Krishna has done for the Pandavas. And in this particular stanza, there are a couple of things very quickly discussed, right? The battle with Drona, he talks about, and he talks about, when the Nagastra was discharged by Karna. So at that time, Krishna then put his feet down so that because that person, the charioteer for Karna, told him to aim at Arjuna's heart, but he wanted to hit at Arjuna's head. So Krishna then put his feet down. The chariot went down by some distance, so it just knocked off Arjuna's crown. That was one thing. Then this Bhagadatta. Oh, there was another person who was the son of Narakasura. So that Bhagadatta, he then sent out a Vaishnava Astra, Narayana Astra. So at that time, Krishna then took it on him. So because the Narayana Astra is something that comes from Narayana, so Krishna took it on him, so it became a garland for Krishna. So he saved Arjuna at that point. Then the other thing is around Jayadratha. So Jayadratha, he marries Dushala, who's the one of the daughters, the sister of Kauravas, right? The only sister of Kauravas. So he also tried to do something to Draupadi at some point, and then he gets a boon from Shiva and all that. But where he says, Shiva says, I can let you contain the Pandavas for one day. So for one of those days, where Jayadratha, he then stops the Pandavas, because of which Abhimanyu dies, because Abhimanyu gets stuck in Chakravyuha. So Arjuna takes a vow saying, next day, if I don't kill Jayadratha, I'm going to jump into the fire. So at that time, because he's not able to do it, Krishna then, with this chakram, he hides the sun. So Jayadratha then thinks the day is over, and then he comes out. Everybody comes out. Then he releases, the sun comes out again, and Arjuna is able to get rid of Jayadratha. Anyway, all of those is the Mahabharata story. So essentially, he's saying, Krishna, there's so many ways you help the Pandavas. There's no list, especially for Arjuna. There's just innumerable occasions, right, which you actually helped him in. So Yuddhe Dronasya, Hasti Sthira Rana Bhagadatteritam Vaishnavastram, Vakshasyadhatta Chakra Stagita Ravi Mahaha, Prardayat Sindhurajam. Yuddhe Dronasya Hastisthirarana Bhagadatteritam Vaishnavastram Vakshasya Chakra Stagita Ravi Mahaha Prardayat Sindhurajam.
युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररण भगदत्तेरिदं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्याधत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजम् युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररण भगदत्तेरिदं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्याधत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजम्
युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररण भगदत्तेरितं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्यादत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजम् युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररण भगदत्तेरितं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्यादत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजम्
Nagastre Karna Mukte, Kshitim Avanamayan Kevalam Kritta Maulim, Tatre Tatrapi Partham, Kimiva Nahi Bhavan Pandavanam Akarshit. You can break it that Pandavanam Akarshit. Nagastre Karna Mukte Kshitim Avanamayan Kevalam Kritta Maulim Tatre Tatrapi Partham Kimiva Nahi Bhavan Pandavanam Akarshit.
नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते शिदिम् अवनमयन् केवलं कृतमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानामकार्षीत् नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षिदिम् अवनमयन् केवलं कृतमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानामकार्षीत्
नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिम् अवनमयन् केवलं कृतमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानाम् अकार्षीत् नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिम् अवनमयन् केवलं कृतमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानाम् अकर्षीत्.
Stanza 9. युद्धादौ तीर्थगामी सकलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायि सूतक्षयकृदत सुतं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा यज्ञग्नं बल्वलं पर्वणि परिधलयन् स्नाततीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यातः पुरीं ते. This talks about, so Balarama never wanted to participate in this war because it was a very difficult choice for him, because he was Duryodhana's guru. He's taught Duryodhana. At the same time, he knew Krishna was going to be supporting the Pandavas. The Yadava army was going to be supporting the Kauravas. So Balarama said, what, I'm not going to participate in any of this. So he went on a Tirtha Yatra. He says, I'm not going to be part of this Mahabharata war at all. So he goes to Naimisharanya forest. So the Naimisharanya forest is one of the most very important location in India. Like if you go to Tiruvannamalai, they say the mountain is Lord Shiva, right? That is Lord Shiva. Similarly, if you go to Tirumala, they say Venkatachalapati is the mountain. Similarly, Naimisharanya, the forest itself is Narayana. So you don't have to go to a temple in Naimisharanya to worship. That entire forest is Bhagavan. So because in that Naimisharanya only, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Sutta Pauranikas, and all of the Sanaka Rishis and all of that conversations, everything happens in Naimisharanya. It's a very religious place. So anyway, so Balarama goes there, and that's where he spends his time. And then he's just spending his time just roaming around religious places. Finally, he comes back thinking the war is over. That's when the Bhima and Duryodhana battle is going on. So he says, all the more reason I don't want to be part of this. So he then goes off to Dwaraka. So that's what it's saying, that Balarama did not participate at all. He just went off. He just saw all this was happening, and then he decides to go off to Dwaraka saying, I want nothing to deal with this, right? So Yuddhadau Tirthagami, Sakhalu Haladharo Naimisha Kshetra Mrichan. Put the in. Kshetra Mrichan. Put the in and a comma. Next line, you'll have a double na that goes away. It starts with the a. Apratyuthai suta kshaya kridata, comma. Sutam tatpade kalpayitva. Yuddhadau tirthagami sakhalu haladharo naimisha kshetra mrichanne apratyuthai suta kshaya kridata. Sutam tatpade kalpayitva.
युद्धादौ तीर्थकामी स खलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रं मृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायिषूदक्षयकृदद सुदं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा. युद्धादौ तीर्थकामी स खलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायिषूदक्षयकृदद सुदं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा.
युद्धादौ तीर्थकामी सकलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायि सूदक्षयकृतद सूदं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा.
The second line, Sutam. And you said Sutam. Sutam Kalpate.
Which one?
Second line, second half. Sutam. Short, yeah.
Oh, Sutam. Sorry. Okay. युद्धादौ तीर्थगामी सकलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायि सूत. This is also Suta.
That is long.
Oh, that is Suta, and the fourth one is Sudam.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Apratyutthayi sutakshayakrutada sutam tatpade kalpayitva.
The second one, Sutam. Short. First is long Su. Suta Kshayakrita. So, that
When you
Suta.
break it down, it is
Su.
oh.
When it goes as a long line, it is Suta. So, Apratyuthai Suta.
Oh, here it is given opposite. It's
Okay. So the
it has come down for the first one and goes longer.
Okay. It's exactly the opposite, because the first one is talking about Balarama meets a Suta. He's like a Shudra, right? And then So that's why he's referring to the word Suta, and then he gets rid of his son. So that is Sutam, means his son. So
Okay.
under the Sutam, it's a short U, but the first
Correct.
Su is the Suta. So
Yeah, that's why I did opposite. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yajnagnam. So it's a little tough word. Yagnya ignam. Yajnagnam. Next one, some of you may have Valkalam, some of you may have Balvalam. So change it to Balvalam if you have something else. So Yajnagnam, Balvalam, Parvani, Paridalayan, comma. Snata Tirtho Ranante, put a plus, Samprapto, and then a comma. So Snata Tirtho Ranante Samprapto, comma. Bhima Duryodhana Ranamashamam Vikshya Yataf Purim Te. Yajnagnam Balvalam Parvani Paridhalayan Snata Tirthoranante Samprapto Bhima Duryodhana Ranamashamam Vikshya Yataf Purim Te.
यज्ञज्ञं पल्लवं पर्वणि परितलयन् स्नानतीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमसमं वीक्ष्य यादः पुरीं ते यज्ञज्ञं पल्लवं पर्वणि
Balvalam, sorry, Shani. Balvalam.
यज्ञज्ञं भल्वलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नानतीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधन रणमसमं वीक्ष्य यादः पुरीं ते.
Shani, the first line, second last word, Snatha. You're saying Snana. It's a ta sound. Snatha Tirtho.
Okay, yes, स्नाततीर्थो. Yes. Okay.
यज्ञज्ञं बल्वलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नादतीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यादः पुरीं ते यज्ञज्ञं बल्वलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नादतीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यादः पुरीं ते.
That's certain. संसुप्त द्रौपदेय क्षपन हतधियं द्रौणीमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृद विजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशद्युत्तरागर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्रः किल जठरमघाः चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम्. Each of this is unfortunately long stories, right? But of course we won't go into that much detail, but as you all know, like after when the war was, Duryodhana was defeated, and then at the time Ashwatthama felt like I had no role to play in the war, right? You did not leverage my skills, he felt. So he said, I have to prove to Duryodhana why I am the best, because Duryodhana never made Ashwatthama commander. So what he does is one night he goes with the plan of killing the Pandavas. He goes into the tent at night and he kills off 5 people. And then he goes to Duryodhana and said, I killed 5 Pandavas. Later on, they realized he did not kill the Pandavas, he killed the Upa Pandavas. So he killed the sons of Pandavas, right? So at that time, Draupadi and Arjuna's 5 children got killed. They are the only people left in the lineage of Pandavas because Abhimanyu was already killed. So Duryodhana, who is such a rotten person, he himself told Ashwatthama, I don't want to have any connection with you anymore because you've done such a lowly thing that you went and killed 5 children who were unarmed, who were sleeping at night. He says that is the most atrocious act you can do. Duryodhana said, I'm not going to even accept this, right, as a thing. So anyway, so when all of them find out about this, Arjuna then goes and tells that I'm going to kill the Ashwatthama. So he chases Ashwatthama. At one point, Ashwatthama felt like he could not defeat Arjuna. So whenever an enemy is cornered, they resort to what is absolutely the worst. So Ashwatthama then sends a Brahmastra with the intention of destroying the whole world, the first Brahmastra that he sends. So at that time, Krishna then tells Arjuna that you also know how to do it. You retaliate with it. and then pull both of those back, because Arjuna knows how to pull them back, while Ashwatthama doesn't know how to pull them back. So anyway, Arjuna sends it, the Brahmastras then don't destroy the world. Arjuna pulls them all back. They bring Ashwatthama back with the intention of killing. At the time, Draupadi says, he is your guru's son. So the moment your guru has passed away, his son has taken your guru's spot. So you cannot kill your guru's son. Although he's a Brahmana and he's committed all this crime, you cannot kill him. So he says, instead, so what they do is they shave his head and send him off. There's a long story there. But Ashwatthama doesn't stop. He then, next time when Krishna is about to leave for Dwaraka finally, he then sends 6 Brahmastram. 5 of them towards the Pandavas, 6 aimed at Uttara, who's Abhimanyu's wife Uttara, who is pregnant. And because there's one more lineage of Pandava left in Uttara's Garbham, so he sends the 6th Brahmastram towards Uttara's Garbham. So Uttara then, Krishna is leaving for Dwaraka. Everybody's there. Krishna is saying bye to everybody. Uttara comes running, saying, Bhagavad says, she comes running and saying, Krishna, I'm feeling a heat in my stomach. I feel like I've been aimed at, because the Brahmastra has a specific target of Uttara. So she said, I'm having such a heat coming up in my stomach. You have to do something. And the beauty here is all the Pancha Pandavas are standing. Uttara doesn't go to any of them. She knows this Brahmastram that is coming, the specific one which is coming, none of the Pandavas can help me out. Krishna is the only hope. So Krishna then sends a Sudarshana Chakram to shield the 5 Brahmastras. And then he himself becomes Angushta Matra. He becomes the size of a thumb and gets into Uttara's womb. So Krishna probably was never even in Devaki's womb, because when he was born, he doesn't have to go through that life like we do go through, right? But in Uttara's womb, he went in and then he protected Parikshit. So he then was circling around the embryo of Uttara, and then that's how Parikshit was saved. So that person who was actually born became called as Parikshit, who then becomes great and then leads to the creation of Srimad Bhagavatam along with Shuka Brahmam and all that stuff. Anyway, all of that is condensed here, saying, Krishna, you then protected Parikshit this way, right? So he was born blessed by you. So that's the story which is here. So
Just a curious question. So Krishna goes inside Uttara's womb, right? So that means Uttara is like the mother of Krishna.
Exactly. That was the other thing that is being said, right? It's like, that's why I said specifically that he quite did not even go into Devaki's womb, but he was inside Uttara's womb.
Correct.
But go ahead,
So did she have any boon like that? Because Tataka also, I'm sorry, not Tataka, Bhutana got a boon from Krishna that he wanted to be the mother. So, she breastfeed him and stuff like that. And
yeah. He quite did not go inside the womb as such. He was around the womb of Uttara. Think of it that way, right?
To protect the baby inside the womb.
Protect the fetus. So he did not
sort
go
of,
inside.
Sort of mother, yeah.
Correct. So he did not actually go inside the womb like Parikshit was the baby, but he was around that to some extent, right? And I think more than Uttara, it was about Parikshit. It was about Parikshit, because Parikshit was a very realized soul. And if Parikshit was not there and if all that happened, you wouldn't have gotten Srimad Bhagavatam, all of those great things. So more than Uttara's Charitram, you would look at Parikshit's greatness.
Correct.
So this was more about blessing Parikshit than about saving Uttara.
Okay, got it.
Because Uttara then comes to Krishna and essentially, and this will go for a really long time, but Uttara comes to Krishna and says that you don't even have to save me. You save my baby somehow. Right? That's what she says. So Krishna says, don't worry, I'll save both of you. Right? So, but anyway, it's more about Parikshit, but correct. And you told her the correct number, but still he went inside Uttara's thing. So, Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hatadhiyam, Draunimetya Twaduktya, Tan Muktam Brahmamastram, Samahrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam cha Jahre. So they eventually removed the Mauli, that the crest jewel that Ashwatthama had when he did all these things, right? Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hatadhiyam Drauni Metya Twaduktya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samahrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam cha Jahre.
Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hatadhiyam Draunimedyatvadukya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samahrida Vijayo Mauliratnam sa Jahre. Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hatadhiyam द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृदविजयो मौलिरत्नं स चह्रे
संसुप्त द्रौपद्ये क्षपण हद हद हददीय
Draupadeya.
yeah Draupadeya yeah संसुप्त द्रौपदेय क्षपण हददीयं द्रौणिमेद्य त्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृदविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे संसुप्त द्रौपदे sorry संसुप्त द्रौपदेय क्षपण हददीयं द्रौणिमेद्य त्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृदविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे
Uchitye Pandavanam, put a comma after that. Punarapi cha Vishat Yuttara Garbhamastre, put a plus after that. Garbhamastre Rakshanangushta Matraha, put a ih sound. Matrah Kila Jataramaghaha. So that ish that is there, remove the ish, put a visarga comma. Jataramaghaha Chakrapanir Vibhotvam. So you went with your Sudarshana Chakra inside Uttara's womb and then saved. Uchchiti Pandavanam Punarapi cha Vishat Yuttara Garbhamastre Rakshanangushtamatra Kila Jataramaghaha Chakrapanir Vibhotvam.
उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रसन् रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्र किल जडरमघाः चक्रबाणिर्विभोत्वम् उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्र किल जडरमघाः चक्रबाणिर्विभोत्वम्
उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशद्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्र किल जड रमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम् उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशद्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्र किल जडरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम्
Stanza 11. Dharmaugam dharmasunorabhidhadadakilam chandamrityussa bhishmaha tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaivahi sapadiyayo nishkala brahma bhuyam samyajyatashvamhedai stribirati mahitai dharmajam purnakamam samprapto dvarakam tvam punar pavanapurapate pahimam sarvaroghat. To the very end. So when Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows, so Bhishma had this power where he can decide when he wants to leave, when his soul has to leave the body. Because if you remember the Ashtanga Yogam we had kind of talked about, he had a command over the Ashtanga Yogam. So he can decide when he can bring his pranavayu out and then he can exit. Right? And he was waiting for the Uttarayana to start so that his soul doesn't have to wait. It can immediately go. So he was waiting there. At the same time, after all this war was over, after everything is over, when Krishna was leaving for Dwaraka, Yudhishthira says, you know what, I actually don't need this kingdom. And Krishna's like, what? Your entire family has gotten annihilated. So many thousands and tens, hundreds of thousands of people have died. But Yudhishthira, you don't want the kingdom now after all this that you fought for? Krishna says, I don't have, my mind is not there to rule the kingdom. So Krishna said, even the only person who can help is there are two reasons I have to go meet Bhishma. One is for all the great things that Bhishma has done. Bhishma is number one devotee of Krishna. So Krishna wants to make sure Bhishma sees Krishna when he's passing away. That's number one. Two is he wants to make sure Yudhishthira hears directly from Bhishma about all the Dharma Shastras. So they all go and meet Bhishma. And then Bhishma then explains to Yudhishthira all the Dharma Shastras that exist. And then Yudhishthira asks Bhishma 6 questions, for which Bhishma then gives the Vishnu Sahasranamam that is there. And once all of that is done, Bhishma does a stuti to Krishna. And finally, looking at Krishna, Bhishma then exits, his soul exits the body. All of that is happening. So with that, Bhishma, then once Bhishma leaves, then Krishna then performs the Ashwamedha Yajna for Yudhishthira, establishes him as the king, and finally returns to Dwaraka. So this is the whole Mahabharata kind of condensed in this one Dashakam here. But so Dharmaugham, Dharma Sunor, that word I'm going to break into three. Dharma Sunor Abhidhadat Akhilam. Okay, three parts there. The three das there. So Dharma Sunor Abhidhadat Akhilam. Chanda Mrityussa Bhishmaha. Put a visarga at the end and comma. Next line, the is goes away. Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumnaivahi, comma. Sapadi Yayau Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam. Dharmaugham Dharma Sunor Abhidhadadakilam Chanda Mrityussa Bhishmaha. Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumnaivahi. Sapadiyayo Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam.
Dharmaugam dharmasunor abhidadat akhilam chandamrutyusya bhishmaha tvam basyan bhakti bhumnaivahi sapatiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam. Dharmaugam dharmasunor abhidadat akhilam chandamrutyusya bhishmaha tvam basyan bhakti bhumnaivahi sapatiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam.
Dharmaugam dharmasunur abhidadat akilam chandamrutyussa bhishmaha tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaivahi sapatiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam. Dharmaugam dharmasunur abhidadat akilam chandamrutyussa bhishmaha tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaivahi sapatiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam.
Samya Jya Tashva. One word, but remember the word Tashva Medhais. Up to that is one word. But remember the word Ashwamedhai. That's the second part of that. So Samya Jya Tashva Medhais Tribhirati Mahitair Dharmajam Purnakamam, comma, Samprapto Dwarakam Tvam, comma, Pavana Purapate Pahimam Sarvarogat. संह्याज्ञाताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरति महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
Samya jhata swamedays
Tribhirati.
Samya jhata swamedays त्रिपिरदि महिते धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. सम्या जाता स्वमेधैः त्रिभिरदि महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
So I think the last line after Dwarakam Tvam there is a comma, okay?
Okay. Dwarakam, okay. Thank you.
सम्याज्ञाताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरतिर्महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. सम्याज्ञाताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरतिर्महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, we jump to 89. I think we had Ram and Padma Garu, right? So 89 is Vrikasura Vadabharnanam. So 88 Dashakam after Santana Gopalopakyanam, Krishna Avataram is done in Bhagavad, in Narayaneeyam, right? So this is now going after that. So stanza 1. रमा जाने जाने यदि तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मदकृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा. So, we all kind of, wonder, right? I'm doing all these prayers, but, I'm not getting any of the things that I'm asking for. Of course, 100% of the things we ask for are material things only. Either it is something to do with job or something to do with family or something to do with money or something like that. So you always wonder, why is it that I'm not getting, I'm praying so much to Narayana or Krishna, I'm not getting anything I'm asking for. We are not the first, because Parikshit asked this to Shukra Brahmam also. He says, there is this paradox, this conundrum I'm having. He says, Krishna is Sripati. So he's the husband of Lakshmi, herself. She's sitting in Krishna, in Narayana's kavacham. But the people who worship Narayana Krishna, they don't seem to have all the material things that they're asking for. Shiva, on the other hand, is an ascetic. He's wearing, he takes the basmam which is there from the Basmashala, he puts it on his body. He renounced everything. But everybody who prays to Shiva gets whatever they want. So he says, how is this possible? No, please explain this conundrum to me, right? So at the time, Shukra Brahmam explains very beautifully, saying Shiva's union with Shakti is a union of material energy and Shiva. So it's kind of everything up to that level is at Shiva's level. And he says, when Narayana is something just beyond material energy, it's a spiritual energy. So you'll only get liberation if you actually worship Narayana. You cannot expect to get other material things if you worship Narayana. It's a detailed, long explanation. I'm not going to get into all the details, but he explains that how the energies are there. And then Yudhishthira also asks Krishna this, and Krishna also says the same thing directly to Yudhishthira, saying that my pure devotees, they will always have to go through a struggle, because unless they have a struggle, they're not going to think about me, they're not going to know the value of things. And this is best explained by Kunti Devi, because when Uttara was saved in the previous chapter that we spoke about, Kunti in Bhagavatam does a great Kunti Stuti. So, where she says, she lists from the beginning of Pandava's birth till this point, all the times that Krishna has come and saved Pandavas. And she says, Krishna, if not for the sufferings that we would have encountered, we wouldn't have got a chance to see you. Right? If none of those issues happened, Krishna, you would have never come. Right? So she says, I pray to you, Krishna, that you keep giving me problems more and more. So because every time I have a problem, I know you are going to come to save me. Right? And that's when she says, Krishnaya Vasudevaya Nanda Gopakumaya. So that stanza comes after that, right? So she kind of talks through that whole thing and she does a stuti to Krishna. So anyway, so here, this the main idea here is, at the end of the day, he won't, Krishna, Lord Narayana will not let you down, right? But at the same time, do not expect that things are going to be rosy, because he says you have to kind of, at the end of the day, you have to burn your karmas, right? You cannot escape from your karmas. So whatever the karmas are, you have to burn through it. By going to Narayana, think of it as he's getting you faster to liberation. And to get faster to liberation, you have to burn your karma. So you have to exhaust all of that. There's no escaping from that. But if you want materialistic things, Narayana may not be the right thing. That is the explanation Shukra Brahmam gives, as the explanation Krishna himself gives to Yudhishthira. And that's what Kunti and everybody are also validating. Anyway, I'll say you why this is, because it's going to continue in the next stanzas. So, Rama jane jane yadiha tava bhakteshu vibhavo, comma, na sadyas sampadyas tadiha mada kritvada shaminam prashantim kritvaiva pradishasi tataha, put ich sound, tatah kamam akhilam, comma, prashanteshu kshipram na khalu bhavadiye chutikata. So half each is there, chutikata. Rama jane jane yadiha tava bhakteషు vibhavo na sadyas sampadyas tadiha mada kritvada shaminam prashantim kritvaiva pradishasi tatah kamam akhilam prashanteshu kshipram na kalu bhavadiye chutikata.
रमा जाने जाने यदिह तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मदकृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा रमा जाने जाने यदिह तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मदकृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा
रमा जाने जाने यदि तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मदकृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा रमा जाने जाने यदिह तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मदकृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकदा
Stanza 2. सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्कराधीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्. So kind of continuing that thread of thought, right? So, Bhattripada is also saying that, like I said, Yudhishthira, after the Ashwamedha, he asks this to Krishna, and Krishna also explains it. And Bhattripada also says that there's nothing to say that this God is better or this God is not better, right? I think that's a beautiful, the beauty of Hinduism is depending on your nature, whoever you can connect with, you can pray to that Lord. So there's absolutely nothing to say, about that front. And he says there are a lot of examples of how people have prayed to Shiva and Brahma, gotten what they want relatively easily. That for us it's still hard because they still do meditation for 10 years and all that. So, but for them, relatively easy. But at the end of the day, it ends up backfiring, right? And there are a lot of examples, right? Like about Ravana, about Hiranyakashipu, the boon he got. Ravana also got a boon similarly, right? And then Bana we saw, right, where he made Shiva the commander in chief. Then we saw Jayadratha had this boon where we spoke about where he can. So they all had these boons, but then they all misused it, right? Because some of these boons, when you cannot give it to the wrong person. So he says in that context, another example which is very prime and well discussed, they say is the example of Vrikasura. That is how it is starting, and next it will go into the Vrikasura story. He says Vrikasura is one such example where somebody does the right meditation, prayers, all that, gets a boon, but they are not supposed to have gotten it, right? And that's the example they're going to give. So Sadhyaha, put a F. Sadhyah prasada rushitan vidhi shankaradhin, comma, kechid vibho nija gunanugunam bhajantaha brashta bhavanti bata kashtamadhirga drishtya, comma, spashtam vrikasura udaharanam kilasmin. सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्कराधीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्.
सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद्विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन् सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद्विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्
सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन् सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्.
Stanza 3. Shakunija satu naradamekadha त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं सचदिदेशगिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु. There was once a person called Vrikasura. It is a son of Shakuni, not the Shakuni who came in Mahabharata, but some other famous Shakuni who was there. So this Vrikasura, he was wondering, how do I get, what is the fastest way for me to get what I want? So he was considering that. So he meets Narada on the way. So he says, Narada, of the Trinity, who do I worship so I can actually get what I want the fastest? So Narada, of course, knows what is there in everybody's mind, and he said, okay, this person doesn't want liberation, so I can't tell him to worship Narayana. So he says, Vrikasura, you can pray to Brahma or Shiva. Narada gives example of how Ravana prayed to Shiva and he got so much strength. He talked about how Bana prayed to Shiva, got so much strength. He says, you do the right kind of process, you'll be able to meet Shiva and Shiva will be able to bless you. So he then directs him saying, you do those prayers to Lord Shiva. So Shakunijaha put is Shakunijas Satu Naradamekada, comma, Twarita Tosham Aprichat Adhishwaram. If you want to break it 4 parts, Tosham Aprichat Adhishwaram. Sacha Didesha Girisham Upasitum, comma, Natu Bhavantam Abhandum Asadhushu. 3 words there. You can also say it together, but if you want to break it, you can break at dot ma as immana. This is slightly different tune than the second stanza, okay? But I won't be able to tell you which chapter it is, but I know the tunes. Shakunijasatu naradamekadha twaritatoshamapricchadadhishwaram sachadidesha girishamupasitum natu bhavantamabandhumasadhushu.
शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु
शकुनिजः स तु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदतीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु शकुनिजः स तु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदतीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु.
That's a 4. तपस्तत्त्वा घोरं सकलु कुपितः सप्तमधिने शिरश्छित्त्वा सद्यः परहरमुपस्थाप्य पुरतः अतिक्षुद्रं रौद्रं शिरसि करधानेन निधनं जगन्नाथाद्वव्रे भवति विमुखानां क्व शुभदीः. So once Narada then advised Vrikasura, he then goes to Kedarnath, where he then starts doing this penance towards Shiva. So if you all are thinking, how can Vrikasura meet Shiva in 7 days? I'll tell you the process Vrikasura does. Every day he cuts a portion of his body and offers it as a fire sacrifice to Shiva. So full day he's praying and the sacrifice he's offering is part of his body. So he does that for 7 days and still Shiva does not come. So finally he says, this is done. I cannot keep doing this after more days. So one day he then goes, takes bath, and then in Kedarnath, and then he comes, he's about to chop his head off, saying that since you're not coming, O Shiva, I'll just give you my head. At least then let me see if you can come in front of me. So when he's about to do that, at the time Shiva comes in front of him and says, you know what? And Shiva, the moment Shiva touches him, he becomes whole again. And Shiva says, Shiva says, I'm very pleased with just one offer of water, but you are doing all these things to your body, right? To pray for me. So tell me what you want. So Vrikasura then says, I want a boon whereby whoever I touch with my hand, that person has to burn into ashes. And Shiva says, oh my God, this is such a bad thing he's asking. But then Shiva said, I'll give you whatever you want. So you can't take his word back. So he says, okay. So he says, that's like giving milk to like a poisonous snake. You take it on. But anyway, Shiva says, okay. And then Vrikasura then gets that boon. So tapas taptua ghoram sakhalu Kupitaha, put a is kupitas, saptamadine, comma. Shiraha, put a ish. Shiraschitva, sadhyaha, put a f. Puraharam, upasthapya puratah. Atikshudram raudram, shirasi karadanena nidhanam, comma. Jagannatad vavre, bhavati vimukhanam, kwa shubhadhihi. So this is also the tune changes to the four-liners. Tapastaptva ghoram sakhalu kupitas saptamadhine shiraschitva sadyah paraharam upasthapya puratah atikshudram raudram shirasi karadanena nidhanam jagannatad vavre bhavati vimukhanam kvashubhadhihi.
Rajesh,
Ah,
in my book it says the second line, Shiraschitva Satya Puraharan Kutruk. Is it Parahara or Purahara?
Puraharam. Did they say Paraharam? Sorry,
Oh,
Puraharam.
sorry. So both are Purahara and Puratah, right?
Yeah, Puraharam upasthapya puratah.
Puratah. Okay. Thank you.
तपस्तप्त्वा घोरं स खलु कुपितस्तप्तमदिने शिरश्चित्वा सद्यः पुरहरमुपस्थाप्य पुरतः अतिक्षुद्रं रौद्रं शिरसि करदानेन निधनं जगन्नाथाद्वव्रे भवति विमुखानां पशुबधीः तपस्तप्त्वा घोरं स खलु कुपितः सप्तमदिने शिरश्चित्वा सद्यः पुरहरमुपस्थाप्य पुरतः अतिक्षुद्रं रौद्रं शिरसि करदानेन निधनं जगन्नाथाद्वव्रे भवति विमुखानां क्वशुबधीः
तपस्तप्त्वा घोरं सकलु कुपितः सप्तमदिने शिरश्चित्वा सद्यः पुरहरमुपस्थाप्य पुरतः अतिक्षुद्रं रौद्रं शिरसि करदानेन निधनं जगन्नाथाद्वव्रे भवति विमुखानां क्वशुभदीः तपस्तप्त्वा घोरं सकलु कुपितः सप्तमदिने शिरश्चित्वा सद्यः पुरहरमुपस्थाप्य पुरतः अतिक्षुद्रं रौद्रं शिरसि करदानेन निधनं जगन्नाथाद्वव्रे भवति विमुखानां क्वशुभदीः.
That's a fight. Muktaram bandhamukto harinapatiriva pradravats daityad bhityasmadhevo dishi dishi balate prishtato datta drishtihi tushnike sarvaloke tava padamadi rokshantamudviksha sharvam durade bhagratastvam patuvatu vapushatastishe danavaya. So when Shiva then says, okay, Vrikasura, you got that boon, right? Now Vrikasura says, I have to test my boon, right? How do I make sure the boon is working so that you don't trick me? So she then goes to Shiva and says, I want to keep it on your head to test if the boon is actually going to work. Shiva says, okay, no, he did not put any constraints around that boon. There's no exception cases. So Shiva is like, okay, if he keeps it on my head, my body is going to burn. So Shiva then escapes from there. So Vrikasura is going around hunting for Shiva. He wants to test it on Shiva somehow, right? And then so he goes dishi dishi. He goes in a lot of all around the three worlds. So at the time, Shiva then goes to Shweta Deepa, which is kind of the Vaikuntham, which is inside the Brahmandam. So then Narayana realizes that this person is chasing Shiva here. So what he does is he takes the form of a brahmachari, of like a very religious, pious person. Narayana takes that form and he's now standing on the way of Vrikasura to kind of stop him right now. So Moktaram Bandha Mukto, Harina Patiriva. She says Harina Patiriva is like as if you let a lion off the cage and the lion rushes towards you. Similarly, this person is rushing towards Shiva. So Harina Patiriva Pradravat Sota Rudram, Daityat Bhityat Smadevo, Dishi Dishi Valate Prishtato Datta Drishtihi. Moktaram Bandhamukto Harina Patiriva Pradravat Sota Rudram Daityat Bhityasmadevo दिशि दिशि वलते पृष्ठतो दत्तदृष्टिः
मोक्तारं बन्धमुक्तो हरिणपतिरिव प्राद्रवत्सोऽथ रुद्रं दैत्याद्भीत्या स्म देवो दिशि दिशि वलते पृष्ठतो दत्तदृष्टिः मोक्तारं बन्धमुक्तो हरिणपतिरिव प्राद्रवत्सोऽथ रुद्रं दैत्याद्भीत्या स्म देवो दिशि दिशि वलते पृष्ठतो दत्तदृष्टिः
मोक्तारं बन्धमुक्तो हरिणपतिरिव प्राद्र वत्सोऽथ रुद्रं दैत्यादित्या स्म देवो दिशि दिशि वलते पृष्ठतो दत्तदृष्टिः मोक्तारं बन्धमुक्तो हरिणपतिरिव प्राद्रवत्सोऽथ रुद्रं दैत्याद्भीत्या स्म देवो दिशि दिशि वलते पृष्ठतो दत्तदृष्टिः
तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमदि रोक्ष्यन्तम् udvikshya. If you want to break there, roksyantam udvikshya sharvam, duradevagra tastvam, patu vatu vapusha tastishe danavaya. तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमदि रोक्ष्यन्तम् उद्वीक्ष्य शर्वं दूरादेवाग्रतस्त्वं पटुवटु वपुषा तस्तिषे दानवाय
तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमधिरोक्ष्यन्तमुद्वीक्ष्य शर्वं दूरादेवाग्रतस्त्वं पटुवटु वपुषा तस्थिषे दानवाय तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमधिरोक्ष्यन्तमुद्वीक्ष्य शर्वं दूरादेवाग्रतस्त्वं पटुवटु वपुषा तस्थिषे दानवाय
तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमधिरोक्ष्यन्तमुद्वीक्ष्य सर्वं दूरादेवाग्रतस्त्वं पटुवटु वपुषा तस्तिषे दानवाय तूष्णीके सर्वलोके तव पदमधिरोक्ष्यन्तमुद्वीक्ष्य सर्वं दूरादेवाग्रतस्त्वं पटुवटु वपुषा तस्तिषे दानवाय
Stanza 6. भद्रं ते शाकुनेय भ्रमसि किमधुना त्वं पिशाचस्य वाचा सन्देहश्चेन्मदुक्तौ तव किमु न करोष्यङ्गुलीमङ्गमौलौ इत्थं त्वद्वाक्यमूढः शिरसि कृतकरः सोपतच्छिन्नपातं भ्रंशो ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव. So, when Narayana is standing in the form of a brahmachari, he's standing, you can see the glow, the effulgence that is coming from him, right? He's like, when somebody looks at that person itself, they'll automatically feel this person is such a devout and saintly person. I have to listen to that person, right? So that was the form that Narayana was standing in front of this Vrikasura as he comes running. So when Vrikasura comes, first Narayana says, like you seem to have come from a really long place. You look very tired. Your body is very tired because first he has to distract him and calm him down. So he says your body looks very tired because looks like you've been coming from a really long distance. So he says it's very important that one takes care of your body because otherwise you cannot accomplish anything in this world. He kind of calms him down. And suddenly Brikasura begins to say, yeah, you're right. You know what? I'm feeling very tired, right? So he kind of starts calming down. So at that time, the Narayana says, as a brahmachari, says, I have a lot of spiritual powers, right? Because of being a brahmachari. So he says, you tell me what is your problem. Maybe I can actually help you out, or maybe I can guide you. So he kind of first calms him down, then offers to help him. So Vrikasura kind of calms down a little. He then tells, look, I got this boon from Shiva, but I don't know if the boon is going to work. So I'm running after Shiva to test it on him. So at that time, once now this brahmachari has gotten the confidence of Vrikasura, he tells, you are absolutely right. How can you listen to Shiva, who deals with bhuta and pretas? He's in the shamshan and all of this. You cannot trust Shiva's words, right? You absolutely cannot. That's why it says, "Tum pishachasya vacha." How can you trust his words? And remember, he was even cursed by Daksha. So you cannot listen to Shiva's word. I can guarantee you that boon is not going to work. If you don't believe, you can test it on yourself. So somehow Brikasura got tricked into it. right? Because this person is talking in a very nice manner, and Brikasura believes this brahmachari who is there, and somehow it says Tvad Vakya Moodaha. Somehow he got tricked by you, Narayana, by your words, and then he then tested it on himself, and of course the boon worked, and then Brikasura then got burnt to ashes. So this was the example of kind of telling how some people get what they want by praying to Brahma and Shiva very quickly, but then it ends up hurting them because it's not the appropriate thing. Like in Spider-Man, they say when you have a lot of power, it comes with a lot of responsibilities. So if you do not have that, you should not be getting that power, which is what happens to a lot of these people, right? So Bhadram te Shakuneya, Brahmasi kimadhuna Tvam Pishachasya Vacha, Sandehash Chain Maduktau, Tava Kimu na Karosh Yangulim Angamaulau. Bhadram te Shakuneya Brahmasi kimaduna Tvam Pishachasya Vacha Sandehaschain Maduktau Tava Kimuna Karosh Yangulim Angamaulau.
भद्रं ते शाकुनेय भ्रमसि किमधुना त्वं पिशाचस्य वाचा सन्देहश्चेन्मदुक्तौ तव किमु न करोष्यङ्गुलीमङ्गमौलौ भद्रं ते शाकुनेय भ्रमसि किमधुना त्वं पिशाचस्य वाचा सन्देहश्चेन्मदुक्तौ तव किमु न करोष्यङ्गुलीमङ्गमौलौ
भद्रं ते शाकुनेय भ्रमसि किमधुना त्वं पिशाचस्य वाचा सन्देहश्चेन्मदुक्तौ तव किमु न करोष्यङ्गुलीमङ्गमौलौ भद्रं ते शाकुनेय भ्रमसि किमधुना त्वं पिशाचस्य वाचा सन्देहश्चेन्मदुक्तौ तव किमु न करोष्यङ्गुलीमङ्गमौलौ
Itham Tvat Vakya Moodaha, Shirasi Kritakaraha, put is Kritakaras, Sopata Chinnapatam, Bramsho Hevam Paropasiturapi, one word, Paropasiturapi Chagatihi, Shulinopi Twameva. Itham Twadvakya Moodaha Shirasi Kritakara Sopata Bhramsho Hevam Paropasiturapi Chagatihi Shulinopi Twameva.
इत्थं त्वद्वाक्यमूढः शिरसि कृतकरः सोपतिच्छिन्नपातं भ्रंशो ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव इत्थं त्वद्वाक्यमूढः शिरसि कृतकरः सोपतिच्छिन्नपातं भ्रंशो ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव
Ram, on the third line, last word, Sopata Chinnapadam.
So, did I say Sopati?
Yeah.
Okay. Sopatachinnapatam Bhramsho ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव
इत्थं त्वदाख्यमूढः शिरसि कृतकरः सोपतच्छिन्नपातं भ्रंशो ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव इत्थं त्वदाख्यमूढः शिरसि कृतकरः सोपतच्छिन्नपातं भ्रंशो ह्येवं परोपासितुरपि च गतिः शूलिनोऽपि त्वमेव.
Rajesh, one quick question. So the Chakuneya, what does that mean? Why is Krishna addressing him as Chakuneya?
Shakune, O son of Shakuni.
Oh, like that. Okay, I see.
Because he's the.
Okay. Thank you.
And when you started this Dashakam and you said Vrakasura, and then you listed the earlier examples of Shiva, and then as Vrakasura's story progressed, I thought, oh, this sounds like Bhasmasura. And then when
It's very similar to Bhasma.
then when he came as Brahmachari, I'm like, oh, it's a different story then.
Yeah. And the Bhasmasura, it becomes a Mohini avatar.
Yes. I was
So where the
expecting
same
that.
thing happens. Bhasmasura also gets the boon, and then Narayana, because that's the same time where the Mohini avataram Shiva would have seen. So then the Lord Narayana continues the Mohini avataram, and then goes dances with Bhasmasura and then places his head on it, and then because that Bhasmasura, that's a different approach to handle him versus Vrikasura, right? That's all. Okay. We'll just do 2 other stanzas, at least meaning, because I want to close that other meaning today. So stanza 7. Bhrigum kila saraswati nikatavasinastapasaha trimurtishu samadishannadika satvatam veditum ayam punaranadarat uditaruddharoshe bidhau hare pichajihimsi shau girijaya dhrite twamagat. So completely second story starting. So once on the banks of Saraswati, a lot of sages were performing some Vedic sacrifices. So one question came is amongst the Trinity, who is the most sattvic amongst the 3, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva? This question came. So at that time they said, Bhrigu, Bhrigu, you have to go test everybody out, right? To see who is the most sattvic amongst the 3 of them. So Bhrigu was a very exalted Muni, so he had access to all of them. So you see, you can offend a person with physically or speech, which those 2 things we do, but you can also offend somebody with their mind, because that mind still contributes to your karma, right? So you can still do that. So anyway, so Bhrigu first goes to Brahma. So he first goes to Brahma, and then the way he does this is Brahma expects a certain respect, because Bhrigu himself came from Brahma. So but Bhrigu failed to bow down to Brahma or to praise Brahma and all of that. So at the time Brahma felt a little offended, saying that you're not following the right protocol, right, of respects and everything. So our Brahma was able to subdue it. So Brahma did not get angry, but Brahma kind of had a slight, discontentment, right, that Bhrigu was behaving like this. So Bhrigu then figured, okay, I offended Brahma with my mind because I did not express my respect to Brahma. So next he goes to Kailasha. So there Shiva and Parvati are there. There he goes and he starts, yelling at Shiva, saying that, this you are with Bhuta, Pretas, or whatever he wants, right? He starts with words. He starts talking about Shiva. So Shiva then gets very angry that Bhrigu is actually insulting him this way. But with Parvati, Shiva also calms down. But he gets a little offended as well. So Bhrigu said, okay, with my words, I offended Shiva. So next third, he goes to the Shweta Deepa, or the Vaikuntham, which is inside Brahmandam. So Bhrigum kila Saraswati nikata vasinas tapasaha. Put a visarga at the end. The next word, the is goes away. Trimurtishu samadishan nadika, double na, samadishan nadika satvatam veditum. Ayam punaranadharad uditha ruddha. Okay, punaranadharad uditha ruddha roshe vidhau, comma, hare picha jihim sishau girijaya dhrite twamagat. So just do one time, Raman Padmangaru. Bhrigum kila saraswati nikatavasinastapasaha trimurtishu samadishannadika satvatam veditum ayam punaranadaradudita ruddharoshe bidhau hare pichajihimsi shaugirijaya dhrite twamagat.
Bhrigum kila saraswati nikatavasinastapasaha trimurtishu samadishannadika satvatam veditum ayam punaranadara dudita ruddharoshe vidhau hare picha jihimsi shau girijaya dhrite twamagat.
भृगुं किल सरस्वती निकटवासिन सप्तः साहा त्रिमूर्तिषु समादिशन्नधिक सत्वतां वेदितुम् अयं पुनरनादरादुदित अयं पुनरनादरादुदितरुद्धरोषे विधौ हरेऽपि च हि जहिंसिषौ गिरिजया धृते त्वमागात्.
Twamagat. Last word.
Drute twamagat. Okay.
Yeah. Stanza 8. Suptam ramankabubi pankajalocanam tvam vipre vinignati padena mutotitastvam sarvam kshamasva munivargya bhavet sadhame tvatpada chinnamiha bhushanamityavadihi. So then,
Sorry to interrupt. What did he do to Brahma? I know for Shiva he was blaspheming, and what
Yeah,
did he do?
Brahma see, mind he did not respect Brahma.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was kind of an insult because Brahma knows, like even if you had a bow, that is through some action you're doing, but also in your mind you can tell whether somebody is respecting or not. So he did not say hi to Brahma and respect him, and So third is, so then he comes to this Vaikuntham where Narayana is lying, and Bhrigu decides, for Narayana, I want to do something with action, right? That's the third one. So he then takes and kicks Narayana in his chest because Narayana did not pay attention to Bhrigu coming. His eyes were closed. So he then kicked Narayana in his chest. So at that time, Narayana immediately rose, he got up, right? And then he apologized to Bhrigu saying that, Brahmana, you have come. I did not even notice that you had actually come. So I apologize. I did not see you coming and did not welcome you, right, with this. And then he then goes and says that, your feet are so tender that you now kicked me. My chest is so hard, right? So he says, I hope your feet is not paining. And then with that, he massages Bhrigu's feet. So at that time, Bhrigu then felt very satisfied, saying that, what, how is it I'm kicking you and you're still not getting offended, right? And then Narayana says that Tvat pada chinnamiha. She says that the mark that your feet created, I will take it as a blessing and that will become a symbol in part of my body. So he says that will become like the Srivatsa mark in my body, right? Which is where you kicked me. So when Narayana says that, then Bhrigu then felt very happy, and then he decides that of the three, Narayana is the most sattvic. He did not get angry at all, even after it did something physically with an action here. So Suptam Ramanka Bhuvi Pankaja Lochanam Twam, comma, Vipre Vinignati Padena Mudoti Tastwam, Sarvam Kshamaswa Munivarya Bhavet Sadame, comma, Tvat Pada Chinnamiha Bhushanam Ityavadhihi. Suptam Ramanka Bhuvi Pankajalocanam Twam Vipre Vinignati Padena Mudoti Tastwam Sarvam Kshamaswa Munivarya Bhavet Sadame Tvatpada Chinnamiha Bhushanamityavadihi.
Suptam Ramanka Bhuvi Pankajalocanam Tvam Vipre Vinignati Padena Mudhoti Tastvam Sarvam Kshamasva Munivarya Bhavet Sadame Tvatpada Chihnamiha Bhushanam Mityavadihi.
Suptam ramam kabhuvi pankajalocanam tvam vipre vinignati padena mudosti tastvam sarvam kshamasva munivarya bhavet sadame tatvatpada chihnamiha bhushanamityavadihi.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Let's stop the class here today. सान्ध्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावधिभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy
Happy
Mother's Day.
Mother's
Thank
Day.
you. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.